This is Center Stage, putting your firm in the spotlight by highlighting business owners and other industry experts to help take your firm to the next level. Welcome to Center Stage, everybody. I am your host, John Henson, and this week we are talking about your team and not only what it takes to find the best new employees for your firm, but also how to keep them around. I mean, I know over the past couple of years, especially post-pandemic, there's been a lot of talk about like the Great Resignation, and there's a lot of turnover. And I know that that can be especially painful for smaller businesses who are expending extra revenue and budget to try to go and hire and recruit more people. And, you know, if you have constant turnover, that can cause some extra strain. So joining us this week to talk about all of these sorts of things is a really great friend of ours. And she was also the guest for episode number 46 back a couple of years ago when she talked about employee engagement. Yeah, I know. I can't even believe it's been that long, but she's the founder of Hiring and Empowering, and that is Molly McGrath. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you for having me here. Wow, it's been a minute, huh?
Yeah, I know. I was going back through and it doesn't seem like we're in year number 3 of doing this show, but we're closing in on 150 episodes now. So we'll hit that this year and then we'll keep going. So, but this has been a really great resource. Hope everyone out there has been enjoying it. And I hope that you learn a lot today. So for people again who may not have seen you the first time around, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so thanks again for having me. My name's Molly McGrath. I'm founder of Hiring and Empowering Solutions. We have been in the legal consulting and flat fee retained search staffing business since 1997. Incredibly passionate about finding and selling, because I'm sure we'll get into this today. When it comes to staffing for small solo boutique law firms, it's selling your mission, selling your value. And we can talk about that today with the conversation around the great employee resignation, which I'm really passionate about reframing that to the great employee restoration.
Yeah. And I like that because, it is looking more at what businesses are able to gain from this more so than looking at what they lost. But to start, kind of what does the job market kind of look like right now for these solo and small firms who are, maybe anywhere from like trying to hire their first couple of people to maybe some that have a handful already? How competitive is it right now?
It's incredibly competitive. And, honestly, the legal space has been incredibly competitive since 2008. And it's been getting tighter and tighter by the year. The unemployment rate for solo practitioners or for associate attorneys is under 3%. Paralegals now, man alive, they are pandemic hit, they all hung their 1099 shingle, opened up a LLC and making more money than ever and realizing that they can have freedom and autonomy. And I don't say this from a place of breathing fear into the room, but the market's tight. And it's not that employees are trying to hold employers hostage and be in the driver's seat, but they're being incredibly conscious and aware about where they want to spend at their waking hours. Most of their waking hours at work. Either you're sitting at your desk, billing time, working on client matters, or you're sitting on the soccer field watching your kids and what have you, and you're still in your head. You're still thinking about work. You're still trying to problem solve, etc. And if it is really heavy and hard and it doesn't have a tremendous amount of collaboration, people are willing to take a paycheck cut to go work at another firm. That really, yesterday had 3 interviews, and for candidates that are willing to take jobs that we're placing for associate attorneys in smaller firms. For one of them, $25,000 less base salary, and they're considering it. And an offer letter went out last night because of the energy, tonality, essence, collaboration, culture, communication that the firm that we are selling, i.e. staffing for, that really goes above and beyond where they currently are.
Yeah, and I mean, I even see this with us. We've had people come and work for us who were in other industries, other jobs that they were making a lot more, but the things that we sold them on were the culture, the flexibility, and things like that. And we're seeing that people value that a lot more than just pay. Like, pay is still important. People still want to make a comfortable living, and that's still very vital. But there are these extra things that you can provide, environment wise, perk wise, benefit wise, that can make it a little bit more attractive if you don't have necessarily the budget to pay someone more than what they were making, previously.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating. People are really, since the pandemic, sat on the couch, took stock of their life and where they're spending their time, including commute and pay and time
Mhm.
and energy. And it really is coming down to energy. I had an interview yesterday with a rock star candidate. The firm's been looking for someone for over a year and a half. And we get into the Zoom room, and the candidates had ended the interview immediately. She just said, the attorney shows up very old school and traditional. I feel like this is a very clinical interview, very one-sided, and that I have to overperform, and I can pick up that energy in the first 3 minutes of this interview, and I'm ending it. And
Wow.
I was just am so incredibly proud. She did the law firm a favor. The goal is not to change the law firm. The goal is not to change the attorney. It's now we're going to be really clear. And the attorney was unapologetic about it. Very much like, this is how I run my firm. It's an old school traditional law firm, very much, what are you going to do for me, etc. And there are some candidates out there that model still fits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you point that out, because there are different ways to go about doing it. But what are some of the things that you see that a lot of firms really do get wrong when it comes to how they're trying to find talent and hire people?
Okay, I love this question. Number one is in regards to their requirements of what they're looking for a superstar with the precision, getting seduced by the resume. So I have several firms that I'm consistently having sit down meetings with, that when they'll come in and they'll say, I want someone with X amount of years of experience, X amount of precise uh, knowledge in my area of law, etc. And then I present candidates, and it's a human being stuff that doesn't work. So they get seduced by the resume. They get seduced. So often attorneys will tell me, I don't have time to train anyone. I don't have time to mentor anyone. They have to come batteries included. They have to know exactly how to do this area of law, etc. But at the end of the day, I'm like, great, we find a candidate, they come batteries included, they check every box for skill set, knowledge, legalese, years of experience, etc. They're still a human being, and they still need your time, attention, leadership, and feedback. So you still have to do weekly meetings with them. You still have to give them available eyes, available attention, available energy. Nobody wants to be a robot. If they did that, they'd go work on a factory floor on an assembly line. They don't want that. And when we talk to candidates, so often the reason they're leaving their firms is, and they're not very many anymore, because law firm owners are getting this and turning around their culture, but it's because they do not have that leadership and they're not connected to that. There's lack of leadership, lack of consistent communication, and lack of consistent collaboration. So I think where law firms, the biggest place they're getting it wrong is, number one, feeling like they don't have time and they're too busy to give to their employees.
Yeah.
It's a
And,
relationship.
yeah, and it's wild, because like, you're hiring someone to sort of alleviate that time burden, I think, broadly speaking, because you have so much work and you need to offload some of that onto an employee. So yes, you should kind of expect there's a time commitment to when it comes to the onboarding side of things. But I genuinely don't know the answer to this question. So I'm curious as to what you've seen. Do firms have good onboarding practices? Like, do they have good documentation to where it's at least a little bit easier to onboard something? Or in some of these examples that you're talking about, is the extra stress or friction because they don't have a lot of these systems in place, and so it's really being on the firm owner to then go through and basically brain dump everything they know onto these new hires because there's nothing to really like go back to and reference?
As far as onboarding, and I love this question. So most firms do not, most businesses by and large, it's the biggest breakdown is in regards to onboarding and training employees. I tell my law firm owners that take that pressure off of you.
Mhm.
Because if you, for my process, we have a 90-day onboarding included within our hiring
Mhm.
process, which most recruiters do not. And I do this because I know it's the biggest breakdown in systems, process, and onboarding and training and what have you. But if you show up in the interview, you interview from the place of letting people know that you are lacking the onboarding process, you're lacking systems and processes, and it's not on you as the attorney to have to create that. But if you hire right, and if you can gamify it and you can say,
Mhm.
okay, great, I'm going to give you available attention. So right now we need, we don't, where we're lacking right now is a breakdown in our intake process. Where we're lacking right now is in from engagement to closing of the matter, what have you. And I've had firms, owners show up in an interview process and say, this is our first order. I'm hiring you as a paralegal. I'm hiring you as an associate attorney. Let's walk through the process and what I believe in my head, but I will give you time at 1 hour a week. And then we're gonna build this process in 30 days. We're gonna do it together. And so I think a lot of times as business owners, we think that we have to build it before we can hire someone. And or we think we hire someone and then we want to throw everything in the kitchen sinks at them to start getting them, number one, productive and profitable, but also number two, to give us some breathing space so then we can go work, quote unquote, on the business and work on the processes. But that's still not the highest use of the visionary's time. I say take that pressure off you as a business owner and really bring in that collaboration and do it with your new hire. In my experience, the best person to build a process and test a process is for somebody who has never worked in your law firm before, because they will ask the really powerful questions like, why are we doing it that way? And 9 out of 10 times, it's like, great question. I don't know. That's how we've always done it.
Yeah, and the key there is to not be offended by those questions either. Like, I know that, especially business owner, you built that business, you feel really great about why you do the things you do, but everybody's just wired so differently. They think things differently, they process things differently. And so getting in there and whether you have stuff documented or not, like the more people, honestly, like the more you can have people kind of going through your processes and ultimately finding maybe inefficiencies or better ways of doing things, ultimately it makes your firm run a lot better as long as you are open to that sort of feedback and constructive criticism about the processes that you created to begin with.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I talked before about, like how people aren't necessary, like how, salary isn't the only factor when it comes to whether or not they take a job. There are other benefits and perks and culture related things. In your experience, what are some of the things that you've seen that firms are offering culture wise, benefit wise, whatever, that essentially make your job easier in placing people where people are very excited about working for this firm even if the pay isn't where ideally they'd like it to be?
Number one is flexibility in regards to paid time off. I've had many law firms that have moved to an unlimited PTO process. And here's why. Because they are taking the responsibility on their selves as entrepreneurs, as owners, as leaders. So if I'm offering unlimited PTO and I have consistent communication and stand-up meetings with my team, we're doing case review meetings, we're doing looking at billable hours, we're looking at really doing an analysis of their work, of their performance, of their production, of everything. I'm okay if somebody is going to take a week off. I understand that I'm hiring adults. I'm hiring people that are self-governing. I know I've shifted my mind from a place that I need to manage people, but I need to lead people. And when you hire right, you're not worried about people abusing, quote unquote, the policy. There's so many studies and articles out there on just how that is a complete opposite. When it's unlimited PTO, people work harder because it's a mindset and it's an energetic essence within your practice. So it's number one, being really not rigid with it. I still have law firms that are saying, okay, for 5 years experience and above, that they'll get 3 weeks off, 3 weeks of PTO off. I'm like, nobody's going to take that job. And it's not necessarily that they want to take 5 weeks off, but it's just lacking this collaboration. It has an old school mentality around that. It just the framework and the HR that they're building their firms on with paid time off, accrual, and things of that nature, reviews, bonuses. So it's number one, there's flexibility and there's collaboration with time off and communication. And then also, in addition to the billable hour requirements, there's still firms out there that are coming at everything from the billable hour. What's in it for me? And it's a very one-sided relationship. And when I, sell the firm during the recruiting process and get really clear on what the unique advantages, what the value proposition is for this law firm, and I get a candidate excited. They get in the Zoom room with the attorney and myself and my recruiters, and they quote unquote fall in love. They really see themselves in this firm long-term, et cetera. It's always when it comes down to offer letter. And if you have an old school, very rigid, one-sided offer letter or an employment agreement, people, even if they don't plan to take 5 weeks off. I had a firm that this week, and we lost a candidate, everything been through 3 months of interview process. Really, really, they loved each other. But it came down to the offer letter. And the offer letter said, your billable hour requirements are X. But the words after that is that, and it needs to be billed, invoiced, and collected. And the attorney, 10-year associate attorney is like, I have no control over when the billing coordinator sends out invoices. I have absolutely no control when AR collects some money over that. And if I'm spending time on collections and I'm spending time on AR, then I'm not billing any additional work for next month's invoices. And the attorney just couldn't not wrap their head around there. I think a lot of times where attorneys are getting it wrong and entrepreneurs is the egos in the driver's seat. We get into the place, you're hiring an attorney because they're really good at issue spotting. They're really good at paying attention to details. For me, if a candidate came back and really did the due diligence of walking through their day, walking through their week, and asked these powerful questions about the distinction between billing and collection and invoicing and all of this, I would be completely impressed, because they're going to give that level of detail to the matter and to the client's file as well. But a lot of times attorneys can't get out of their own way when it comes to, they want strong candidates, they want leaders, they want people that are self-governing. But then when it comes time to doing that with our offer, how we run our law firm, then we get kind of, our ego gets bruised, and then we shoot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah. And especially in talking about a lot of the flexibility, like as you're talking, I'm kind of putting the puzzle pieces together in my mind, because, you talk about, it's a complete, 180 from how a lot of things used to be. And I mean, we're talking going back 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s, beyond, where, yeah, people were totally fine with like 10 days of PTO, and this is what you make, and no sick days or anything like that. Like, you just show up to work because everyone's job was their life. There wasn't really much else going on. Now we live in a society that there's so many different things going on. There's so many TV shows to watch, there's so many places to travel to, so many experiences to have. And at the same time, you know, you as a business owner, of course, your business is your life. Like, you built it. It's your thing. It's your baby. You're going to be way more passionate about it and dedicated to it than anyone else that you hire. And so I don't know that it's reasonable to expect to find people who are going to be dedicated. It's probably not the right word, but as passionate about your firm as you are, they're still going to do a great job. They still, to your point, like, even for an employee, like, their ego won't let them fail. Like, they're going to still want to do a good job, but they also still have a life and other interests and things that they want to do outside of work. And so, to your point, like, I feel like that flexibility is that's why that's so important, because there's so much more going on, and people have other outside interests that they would like to pursue, that their job allows them to do, versus kind of the other way around.
I hear from employees all the time. I feel like I care about the business more than the law firm owner. They
Interesting.
actually are passionate, sometimes more passionate than the attorney,
Okay.
especially in small practice. So when you hire right and you have consistent communication where you are doing daily huddles, you're doing weekly stakeholder meetings, you're meeting with your team, you're sharing with them the vision, you're sharing about what's working, what's not working, where you as an entrepreneur and the attorney and the business owner need accountability, they'll take a bullet for you. It's
Yeah.
really amazing to me how many employees will call me and they're like, I am losing sleep. I am breaking out literally close to shingles right now because our attorney has 5 files sitting on their desk that, number one, we are behind on client communication. The client is calling and they're completely upset because we haven't had a response. The attorney still owes a file and needs to do work, and I can't get the attorney to do their work. Molly, how do I help them with getting the work done? Because I am losing sleep over our branding, over our reputation, and it's breaking my heart that there's clients that are upset and my attorney keeps burying their head in this sand.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's a really, really good perspective. And I'm glad you brought that up. And so, you know, and I think, it really goes in hand in hand, because like I said, like, people are still going to be really passionate about their job. They're really going to care, and they want to see things succeed, and all of the different elements of it. Because, and look, and if, especially if you've created a really good environment that people enjoy coming to every day, that is what's going to light a fire under them. If you or other attorneys are, for whatever reason, creating a bottleneck or whatever, that's going to get them on top of you, because they want to stay there. They want to see the firm succeed, and they want to be able to do well in their job, so that, other opportunities internally, whether it's an increase in salary, or, a firm revenue goal gets hit, so that there's other perks that become available, that opportunity is still there. Because I don't think people genuinely enjoy trying to find new jobs all the time, because that element is also stressful for them, because there's periods where they could be out of work, and that's stressful. Like, so, like, for me, I don't think people want to constantly be hopping from job to job. They want to find a place where they feel like they belong, and have some sort of connection to that contributes to the growth of that firm.
Yeah, people do not. I love that you brought that point up. So often I'll present resumes to attorneys and they say, nope, I don't want to talk to this candidate. They, job hop every 2 years. I'm like, you have to hear their story. Here's why, because especially with small business owners, and if they worked in law firms, when you find out, right now I have a candidate, and about every 2 to 3 years, she's been at new firms. And the one she's leaving right now is because the founder is terminally ill and he
Mm.
doesn't have the capacity to have an exit strategy. His business has not been set up to sell and for any succession planning. So right now, he and his wife made the decision to just wind down the firm and just shut it down. Prior to that, it was because there was a partnership breakup. And so the firm just completely dissolved. There are so many reasons people do not want to job hop. They
Yeah.
don't. And so, and I always say there are situations where they are, and especially since the pandemic, people are really paying attention to their energy and how they feel at the end of the day. So if they're feeling stressed out, if they're feeling undervalued, if they're feeling unappreciated, if they're feeling like they're just a transaction versus a relationship, yes, they are going to look for another position. And the saying always goes that people do not leave jobs, people leave bosses.
Yeah, exactly. So the one last thing I wanted to talk to you about, you've mentioned it a couple of times, in terms of keeping employees engaged and retained, really, you value, weekly meetings, daily huddles. What does that look like? What do the structures of those meetings and huddles look like? And how do you get value out of those from a business owner side of things and an employee side of things?
So first and foremost, there's always an agenda. There are so many books in the late 90s that we're reading about why meetings suck, meeting to death, why meetings are inefficient, effective, a waste of time, how this meeting could have been an email, blah, blah, blah. I really do not believe in that model. I think the reason meetings are either people resent them or they're inefficient or effective is because they are not managed, led, and facilitated properly. So number one, over communication always wins, and communication ping pong occurs with Slack channels and emails and what have you. And then there's breakdowns in understanding and things of that nature. You can touch it once, have a weekly stakeholders meeting. It is managed, led, and facilitated not by the attorney. That is, I have many firms that they rotate a different member of the team every single week. The attorney's job, the entrepreneur's job is to show up, and it's managed and led like a board of directors meeting. We're going through every area of the business. We're running the clock. People are showing up prepared. People are presenting. We are not having conversations. We're not going into the guts about every single file. We're coming with here's what's on deck. Here's my priorities. Here's the problem, and here's the proposed solution. Attorney, give me your guidance, leadership, direction, or redirection. Same thing with the daily huddle. Here are my top 3 for the day. Here were my top 3 for yesterday. Here's what I accomplished. Here's where I got jammed up. Here's where I got stuck. The analogy I'd like to use it for is, a winning team of a football team that's going to go on the Super Bowl playing field does not craft their plan and then go run out on the field and just go full throttle without a halftime, without time, taking their time out, without a locker room huddle before, without watching film intensely after the game to figure out what went wrong. So I think for a lot of times as business owners, we think that we have a path and plan, a strategic roadmap, a blueprint, whatever you want to call it, and then everybody should just follow it. But there's breakdowns that do happen, and there are confusion, and where we need clarity and where we need redirection, etc. And the more that we can communicate and touch it every single day, again, very quickly, managed, facilitated, and led, that's how people reach goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of great info there. I know, for us, like, we have a meeting structure, and look, I'll be honest, I'm one of those people. I hate meetings. I realize their importance, and I'm not gonna, and so, we still have them. And to your point, the agenda is very important, and that's what keeps things moving. And that's what at least helps me get through them, especially if, the topics of discussion of the day or the week or whatever, are focusing on issues that aren't really in my department or anything like that, but it still allows me to contribute in some way based on past experience or any other kind of input that I might have. So, I think the biggest takeaway there is definitely having a strong agenda and very pointed, points of discussion along the way that, and again, you can switch it up every now and then. I know for us, in our huddles, we'll have different talking points, just to kind of mix things up a little bit and get some different sorts of answers and discussions going and stuff like that. So really, really good there. How can people learn more about what you do over at Hiring and Empowering and potentially see if you can fulfill some of their needs?
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much for having me. The easiest way is to go to our website, hiringandempowering.com, and you can opt in. We drop a podcast every single Tuesday. I know, John, we've recently had you on our podcast, and then every Thursday we drop a value add blog. You can opt in, get any of our books within there, and just really stay informed. And of course, there's an opportunity to book a complimentary call, and we could talk about what's working, what's not working, where you need a breakthrough or maybe a 2 millimeter shift in regards to process, production, staffing, or maybe taking some of your team members that you're uncertain if they are a rock star or just coasting, and see how we can turn them into a winning team.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know that, in discussions that you and I have had in the past, especially in talking about how competitive the job market is, it's, especially with what we do and our expertise in marketing, marketing your firm isn't just about getting new clients. It's about, selling yourself to new employees. And I know that you guys do a really great job in framing things that way and helping firms hire a lot of really great talent. So I highly recommend all of you go check out the podcast that Molly does and the resources that she has available. She has a ton of great stuff on her website, but that is going to do it for us here this week. Thanks so much for continuing to listen. If you have not done so yet, please leave a rating and review wherever you are listening. It does help the show. It gets it out in front of more people because the algorithm gods think that and realize that hey, this is a really good show. We're going to get it and expose it more to people. So if you have not done so yet, please do so. But that's going to do it for this week. Molly, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/centerstage.